Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Chicago Techies podcast, a podcast focused on highlighting the voices of Chicago Techies and their experiences. I'm your host, Ceci Benitez. Thank you for joining us. On this week's episode, I am joined by Carmen Saenz, Senior DevOps Engineer at Peak 6 Investments. Hey, Carmen, thank you for joining me for this week's episode of the Chicago Techies podcast. I'm actually really excited to learn more about your journey in tech and all of your accomplishments as you navigate the industry. Why don't we start with your name, your pronouns, where you're from, and your current role?
So my name is Carmen Saenz. My pronouns are she and her, and I am from the south side of Chicago. Grew up in Brighton Park and Beck of the Arts specifically. Chicago's all about the neighborhoods. And I am currently a senior DevOps engineer at Peak 6 Investments.
Awesome. I spent a lot of time in Brighton Park during my time at the high school when I was working in Chicago 5 years ago. I basically was a director of recruitment and retention at Ace Tech Charter High School, and a lot of my kids came from Brighton Park in Beck of the Arts area, so love that place. There's a lot of really good restaurants all over there. If you want authentic Mexican food, you can either go to obviously Little Village and Pilsen, but also Back of the Yards.
Definitely. That's great food.
Yeah. So growing up in the city, obviously you probably had more visibility into kind of the, computer science and computers and things like that. Is that kind of something that interests you? Did you know that you wanted to go into tech as a little kid?
I think it was more when you're growing up, you always have I'm going to be a doctor or whatever, right? I always thought I was going to be an Egyptologist, or I dabbled in art, and then I realized I was more of an appreciator than a doer. But I was always around tech in the sense of I played a lot of video games. I used to read the game power books with all the cheat codes, and then what really helped was I had my mom got a computer secondhand from a friend. And my mom told me, this is the only computer you're going to get until I don't know when. So you better learn how to work with what you got, fix it. And if you need something from it, save up money and get it. So I was kind of okay. So I got into tech because I had to kind of learn, if you have something, you're going to have to keep using it until it literally dies. And I got into, I used PCs for Dummies and Windows 95 for Dummies. And then in high school, that was the age of MySpace, right? So I was the chick that knew how to have change the background with HTML and how to add music or how to have something follow your mouse. I was the chick who knew how to do that coding, right? And I thought this was so slick at the time. And then to top it all off, I was also the chick that had all the games for the TI-83 calculator. I don't know if you remember those games, but I had all of them. So I used to divvy them out to people. So at the end of the day, I realized that I was always in tech. And then when I was applying for college, I'm I'm going to study computer science because I had to fix my own computer. I know HTML. I could totally do this.
Nice. I feel that covers a lot of things right there. You had good inspiration from your mom kind of forcing you to learn. And then also love the age of MySpace kind of shout out, because I've talked about it with people before. And I also would actually find already pre-written code and pre-written themes, but then I would like to manipulate them, so that with the colors and changing colors and adding music to it. So in some ways, I also dabbled with HTML back then. I just didn't know what it was called back then.
I didn't know either. The only class we had at school was keyboard.
Yeah. So same. Yeah. In 7th grade, we only had keyboard, how to write, learning how to write with a keyboard. So I definitely, relate to that. I'm assuming that's really then your whole story for what sparked your curiosity for going into tech. But so I saw that you did your undergrad at Loyola.
Yes,
and I did. You went in and did computer science that way. How was that experience?
It was good, and at the same time, it was also kind of difficult. A lot of it had to do with I went to an all-girl high school. So I was in an all-girl high school, on the south side of Chicago. So, and it was like very mixed, right? Um, and and then I went to Loyola, which has a majority women population, but then I chose a major where there was barely any women. So like I was like in AP Calc and Honors Trig, like I was in, all these hard, math and science classes. And it was great because like, a bunch of, young women really doing it, right, in high school. And then I go to college and I'm like, wow, there's like maybe a few women in this class because they're math majors and have to take this class. But after my first class in college, I was the only woman usually. And then luckily there I wasn't the only Latina there. So there was a Latino actually. And him and I took the majority of our classes together. But to be honest, if it wasn't for that friendship I had the first few classes of my journey at Loyola, I don't think I would have stuck it through because I didn't realize like coding wasn't just HTML. It is like there's something called an IDE. There's something called a compiler. There's multiple languages. You have to compile your code. There's memory, how it's used, and struts, and there's just like this whole other world that really was scary because I come in with no background really, right? So like I was struggling with like the simplest concepts, like a for loop, and the people who were in my class, it was my first class ever that was like legit programming was Java, right? And I was in this class, and the majority of people in this class were, suburban kids who took already AP computer science, and they were done out of lab in like 10 minutes. I was in lab for 6 hours. And like this is also the age of only having floppy disk, and I couldn't. That busted the computer that I had. I brought it with me, right? But having a desktop and a slower desktop versus the ones in college, I stayed in the lab, right? So it was difficult actually. And then I felt weird because again, I went from an all girl high school to a male dominated major, and then I was one of two Latinos, and I was struggling to like find my place. And so it wasn't just like a technical adventure and like trying to find myself in tech, but it was also trying to find myself as like a person in a world where um I never really felt like a minority because I was always on the south side of Chicago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I stayed in my neighborhood. And then now I'm on the north side where I don't know how to, where's the closest Mexican store? Like I don't, or Latino store, or where do I go? What bus do I take? Like the streets don't have numbers. They're not 47th and something. They're like, I was really lost as a person. So it was, my journey as an undergrad as a person was hard, but also at the same time, like trying to find myself in tech is like, how do I fit in tech if I don't know how I fit in here? So it was a very difficult journey, but it was a journey that had a lot of guidance and a lot of assistance and a lot of growth, and I had a great support system at Loyola, with friends and at home. So I
Yeah.
honestly credit those people to help me persevere a lot of those things I had my first year.
Yeah, and that's something that is kind of still going on, right? Like there's like that whole gender equity of things, especially with technology and computer science. There's not a lot of women going into computer science degrees even today. So I think that's one of the things that I appreciate when organizations try to kind of address those issues and supporting more women in that are enrolled as computer scientists, because it's super important. And like you said, if you didn't have the support from a friend or someone else that you knew, you probably would have dropped out.
The majority of people of color or women drop out within their
Yeah.
first year.
Yeah.
I've heard horror stories of other women. Um, like I'm in this like Latinas in computing or PhD group,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them was studying as an undergrad, and she was telling me I left my first quarter because I couldn't handle it. Like I had no support. There was like,
Yeah.
and I don't want that to ever happen again. At least on my watch, if I end up teaching again or things like that. So
Yeah. So there's one organization that is working on this on these issues, and that they're called Rewriting the Code. And they basically have universities in their network that have, several chapters of students that kind of meet together and support each other for like homework and things like that. The University of Chicago here, UIC, U of I, and like Urbana and like Springfield, Northern even is part of it. There's a lot of Illinois universities now that have this as a resource for women in computer science. So that's really cool to see that, and I love them, and I keep talking about them. But it's definitely really cool to get involved with them if you're interested in doing something more with that.
Yeah, that'd be great. I didn't even know that this existed. Like both my universities, Loyola is on there and DePaul.
Yeah.
If I knew about that, then I totally would have. Yeah, I will definitely look into it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is also very new, so it might have not been there when you were there.
Oh, it definitely wasn't.
Yeah.
Like early 2000s.
Yeah. So and you're also currently enrolled in school, right? You're getting your PhD?
Yeah, I'm doing my PhD in computer science at DePaul University. I'm currently a third year PhD student. I'm going to take my first competency exam like in a month, literally to the day. So it's exciting and scary, but I'm working with the American Sign Language Avatar Project, which is a project to create a more humanized avatar that does sign language, not just American Sign Language, but multiple sign languages. We're trying to bridge the gap between like the deaf world and the hearing world in many situations where an interpreter may not be available. And a lot of people think that it's fairly easy, but and also a lot of people don't realize there's multiple sign languages. So that's why they think it's easy. It's actually very difficult because there's multiple languages and stuff. So and different ways that we use our face and our body. They think it's just hands, but there's more to it, right? So that's the project I'm working on currently at DePaul, and I actually went back after 10 years of not being in school. So if anyone wants any pointers on how to go back to school after 10 years, I'm totally that gal.
And
Yeah.
how did you get involved with that project?
It's actually a pretty interesting story. So the first tech job ever I got, like ever, as soon as I got out of school, I worked in like as a operations developer. So I worked in finance. So like for trading, right? For like, online trading. So I would have to basically work creating applications in order to handle trades and like where we trade and databases and stuff. And one of my coworkers at the time, he's my friend now, obviously, but my coworker is deaf at the time, and we had to always have an interpreter come in when we had really big meetings and stuff. But my job was really good about saying, hey, the people who work with him a lot, if you're interested, we'll pay for you to learn enough sign language to at least not always need to type, or always use an interpreter or always write. Maybe we can bridge the gap ourselves, right? So my job said whoever works with Brent, his name's Brent, worked with him a lot on projects. If you're wanting to learn how to sign language, or anyone in general, actually sign up. So we started learning sign language at work, and to be honest, it felt like a whole new world was opened up to me. I felt that I was able to communicate better. I had to learn a third language basically, and Brent at the time was actually doing his PhD at DePaul in the same group. But I literally just finished like my master's at Loyola, and I was not going to go back to school anytime soon. And he was telling me about his journey, and I learned about his journey and why he chose that project. Obviously, because of all the things that he went through as a person who is deaf and in the deaf world, and because I love languages and linguistics and learning, I just kept up with some of the sign language, and even though him and I left that job, we still kept in touch and we communicated, and I was always just fascinated with it, and I kept up with it. And then I said 10 years later, I think I found my passion. If you're going to do a PhD, you need to have like a why, right? Like a passion. You need to have something that really grabs you. And it took me 10 years to realize that, like, this is what I want to do. I want to work on bridging the gap of two worlds in our country, as well as in others, to have accessibility be a thing, not just here, but in Mexico or wherever, for people who use sign language as their primary language. And it's even to the point that I started learning Mexican sign language, which is actually different from Spanish sign language. So unlike Spanish, when you speak it, there's Mexican sign language and Spain sign language,
Oh,
which
wow.
they're actually fairly close, but there is, I think, a percentage that's very different.
That's so
So
interesting. I had no idea.
yeah.
Wow. I love that story. I feel like there's always this level of like connection and collaboration that you feel with others that you might not get to work with them again for a long time, but there's always a funny way that keeps kind of coming back. It's like a circle of life, right? Like that's really cool.
It is like after 10 years, like it just kept coming back in my life. It's so much so that my sister is actually studying to be an interpreter, like an American Sign Language interpreter. So she's doing
Amazing.
the hands-on, literal hands-on interpretation while I'm doing the computational and analytical part of sign language. So that's how much it impacted our lives. That kept consistently coming back because of one person that you met at your tech job.
Wow, that's awesome. That's amazing. Um, So I wanna hit on a couple of things, and I think that is about your initial reactions, kind of going into the tech space after undergrad, and before doing your master's and all. But I also kind of want to talk about your first role. So whichever you prefer, like you just got graduated from Loyola, and now you're looking into your first role. Um, what was that process like for you, like that journey of trying to find a job and maybe doing interviews and like whiteboard stuff and trying to like do the technical interviews? Did you come out of Loyola wanting to be a software engineer, or did you go into DevOps like right away after college?
No, like DevOps wasn't even like a thing. Like, so early 2000s, it was just like software engineer, right? Like even at Loyola, they had computer science and that was your degree. Like there was no other degrees. Now you have bioinformatics, network engineering, systems engineer, information systems. Like it was just computer science, right? So when I went in, I applied for software engineering roles. Some of the roles I applied for were just stuff I found online. I think at the time it was like monster.com that we were using or through the resources at Loyola. Um, but also we had the cool thing about the teachers at Loyola is that they always brought in speakers of like ex coworkers or like people they collaborated with, and we had a lot of great people come in to talk to us. And one of them was that trading firm that I mentioned actually, and they kind of presented it in an abstract way because trading and like NDAs and stuff. So um, I got up and I said, "Hi, my name is at the time I was using my first name, Maria Saenz, and I am a senior and I need a job." And he's like, "Great, that's why we came to the class to talk to you." I'm like, "Awesome." He goes, "Here's my card, email this person and let's see how it goes." And I'm like, "Okay." So I did that, and this was really early on. And the first time I interviewed with the company, they liked me a lot, but they said I was too junior and that I could hit them up later, which is fine because I was literally coming out of school. And then I hit the company up again, and I applied for a software engineering role because that's all I knew. And actually, the story I'm gonna say really quick is the story I tell all my undergrads because it's a story of like how one person may write you off right away, but another person can see something in you that really makes them take that like leap of faith that there's something there. When I interviewed at this place, I interviewed as a software engineer, right? In plus plus. So there has to be mutexes and locks and heap and memory and how do you handle memory handling and allocation and deallocation, right? All this stuff. And to be honest, I did learn it, but like the questions they were asking me, I just kept getting them wrong, like wrong one after another in the interview. It was like to the point that the guy looked at me and was like, "You know what? This position isn't for you." But this is after like I got interviewed by other people and he was the last one to interview me. And he goes, "This position isn't for you. Um, I think you should leave." Like it was just like, like I wanted to cry inside. So
Wow, that's so rude though. Like you can't just say oh my God.
Like I just got every question wrong. But I've interviewed with other people. It was like other people from different areas, and he was the main interviewer. He was the head of that software engineering group that I was applying for. But I was interviewing with people that work with that engineering group prior, right? So I was like, okay. And the only thing you can do at like, 20 something year old that's graduated, like, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciated the time at least. So I'm walking out and I'm devastated. I'm like, I'm gonna call my mom. I'm so upset. Like I was like, where's my cell phone? But as I was in the elevator and he stopped the elevator and goes, believe it or not, someone else wants to talk to you. And I'm like, okay.
Jeez, okay.
And I was like, so it's probably one of the people I talked to earlier. And so I get back in this interview room and this other manager comes in and he's like asking me questions like, so you worked at ResNet, right? You like tinkering with computer parts. I'm like, yeah, I do. And he's like, so tell me about some of the stuff you did at school, like ResNet or some of my projects that I had on my resume. So I got really deep into it. And obviously, when you work on a project, you have insider knowledge of it, right? And then he goes, let me have someone else talk to you on my team. Someone else talk to me. Then that same guy who came back who asked me about my resume, about what I did, about the meat of what I am and what I did, he goes, I want to make you an offer. And I looked at him like, wait a minute, this has to be a joke. And I looked at him and I'm like, I'm just letting you know that guy who told me to leave and I got every software engineering question wrong. I'm like he did tell you I got them wrong, right? I just told you I got all of them wrong. And he's like, yeah, no, I don't care about that. That's software engineering. I like that you like tinkering and you like problem solving. And the stuff that you worked on is exactly what my team does. Because we need to figure out where trades go and how they and what they go through and what pipe and why we may not get them or not. And you have a really good background in databases and you built backup systems before. Like all your other qualities on your resume makes you perfect for my team. And literally that's how I got into kind of like the DevOps space, because it was before DevOps. Like they wanted me to figure out problems, figure out CI/CD, figure out database stuff, figure out how to like add memory to a big server. Like I was already kind of doing that at school and I did it as a kid, right? So kind of was like a full circle. Like, yes, I sucked at software engineering questions, but all the little tinkering I did in college and fixing other people's computers and as a kid actually is what got me the job. Not the software engineering part, but not saying that it didn't matter. Like it did at the end, because I also had a code. This is a good story of like saying like, even though someone thinks like writes you off right away, someone else would actually see the depth of you and like what you are technically. I think that goes to show that like your first experience may be the worst, but it also can be your best. And once you have something like that happen to you, like after that, anything whiteboarding, anything that happens to you after that is like nothing. Like you can handle anything if someone just wrote you off that way. And I think it goes to show that whiteboarding, anything after that, it didn't. And I'm not saying that it came easy. It just was like easier to accept if I couldn't get it.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. That's awesome. And I really hope though that you gave some feedback to that guy, because that was still not cool, the way that he handled that.
Yeah.
But,
I never had to see him after that, actually.
well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. So I was, but yeah. Also, trading at the time, like prior bubble burst, was actually really lucrative. So that actually helped me pay off my school loans, but it also helped me put my sisters into a private high school. So as soon as I was able to, I stayed in finance for not just because of the technical parts, but the money at the time helped like raise my family out of like a situation, and I was able to put both my sisters in private high school. I helped pay my middle sister's college. Sometimes I help pay the mortgage. I paid off all my student debt in like 2 years.
Wow.
So not only was I learning and growing and solving really hard trading problems in the early 2000s, I was also like bringing my family up into a level that was more like sane, not like scraping by. So I stayed in tech like that because of the problem solving, but also because I was helping my family.
Absolutely. That's really the only thing that matters anyway.
Yeah.
So, okay, now kind of going back a little bit to your initial reactions as you kind of joined the industry now in the early 2000s. I mean, I feel like and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but it's back then because we're in 2020, right? But in
Yeah.
I mean, early 2000s, I was graduating high school. It's not that, that far away. But like, what was that? Like the divide, like the gender equity, the diversity and inclusion problems, was that even more of like more noticeable back then than it is now?
Oh, heck yeah. It was like really rough. Like not only like you as a person of color and like a Latina interviewing, also like interviewing in finance tech. Like first of all, it's like there's tech, right? And then there's finance tech, which is like a niche, right? And it's even more corporate and more older, like Anglo mostly male, right? And like everyone's older than you in that sense, right? At least the heads are. Um, but like I was actually known as like the baby of my group because I was like 22, and everyone else was just like in their 30s or their 40s or their 50s. So
Wow.
it was even more problematic. I was the only female on my team and the only Latina for like the whole time.
Wow.
There was one Latino, and he was like, my last name is Cardenas, but I am white as hell because like I'm Irish. I'm Irish and Mexican. So like my last name is Cardenas, but I look like a white boy, and I apologize for that. But he told me, but I am one of your people. So like
Wow, that's amazing.
so like he told me that because he goes, I know how that feels. He goes, because I also went to U of I on my minority scholarship, and it was I know understand how difficult this journey is for you. So I had one at the time when I started. I had that one person that like
is
really
he
understood how I felt.
is he in Chicago still?
Yeah, he is.
What's his name?
Ian. His name is Ian Cook, but it used to be Cardenas. So
Okay. Well, here's to him. Like that's awesome. Cheers to him. I'm curious about your like obviously it looks like you're a big proponent of education. And putting your sisters to school and all of that and in college, you also have been teaching at Loyola and
yeah.
yeah. What are the classes that you normally teach?
So I actually stopped teaching because I started my PhD, but I taught for 5 years, part time, undergraduate and some graduates. So I taught data structures in C++ and Java. I've taught intro to programming in Java. I've taught DevOps tools, methodologies. I taught open source computing, as well as scripting in Python and Perl, and intro to computer science in general, like the history of computer science. So I've taught a lot of classes at Loyola. Um, but yeah.
How is that different like from your day to day? Do you enjoy it more or why did you want to teach?
So a lot of the reason that I wanted to teach goes back to that space of like there was no one like me in class or as like looking at a teacher. Like
Mm-hmm.
it devastated me, like to a point that I realized this can't stay like this. Like I need to do something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And after 5 or 6 years of being in an industry, which also was like that, I was like, I love the engineering part. I love the tech part. Like that fulfills me, but I'm not making a change, right? I'm not impacting my community. I'm not doing what I sought. Like I'm solving great, amazing technical problems, but I work at finance firms. Like we just make more money. Like I'm not solving the problems that I had. So I went back to my alma mater and I was like, hey, do you guys have like part times? They're like, hey Maria, good to hear from you. And then at the time I was going by Maria. And then they're like, yeah, apply. I'm like, okay, cool. So I applied and I got a part-time position. And I haven't taught since like I was a TA in grad school. Like again, that was like 6 years after I graduated. And I thought to myself, you know what? If that whole like if you need something to be changed, you need to be that change. So I went back to my alma mater to show that there's women in tech and there are people of color in tech. And I wanted to be that change. And my school always wanted to see that. And the people who supported me were always the teachers of color at the school. And they were the ones that always supported me and they saw an alumni wanting to make a change and technologically inclined. So I wanted to teach and I did that. And I did that for 5 years. And the more that I did it, the more I realized that I wanted to get my PhD because I saw the impact I was making and and I saw it every day I went to teach. I put more time in teaching as a part-time teacher than I did sometimes doing other things in tech. Like my work, I did my work well and I did it effectively, but there was something about teaching that I just loved, and I saw that impact I was making in my own community that I wasn't before. And I said, if I really want to do this, I need a PhD. But at the time I was like, I don't know what to do my PhD in. And then that's when it all comes full circle, right? Like I was like, I need to find something that really fires me up, right? And it went back to, my ex coworker Brent and sign language and DePaul and computer science. And I'm like, I know what I do. I can make an impact in my PhD by making more accessibility. And at the same time, when I go back to school, I'll be a professor, but I'll have a PhD. I'll have the receipts, right? To be able to become a full-fledged professor. Because at the end of the day, I love working in industry and tech, but I feel like I make more impact as a professor or a part-time instructor than I do in industry. And there's more one-on-one communication. It's tangible as opposed to, just mentoring one-on-one every now and then at work, it's tangible, and you're a mentor for life. And even though I stopped teaching 3 years ago to pursue my own, endeavors as a student, I have a good group of like students that, to continuously talk to me and still want mentorship, but also they give me insights because now I'm a student again and I don't know how to be a student again. So they're giving me insights and now like, they're Yoda for me and at times I'm still Yoda for them, So yeah.
I love that. That's cool. So I have kind of like a silly question because I'm still learning all these things. What is the difference between SREs or site reliability engineering and DevOps engineering and cloud engineering? Because I feel like those are a lot of same roles in different companies, or are there similarities or how are they different?
They're actually all fairly similar, but a lot of people say DevOps engineers. In reality, DevOps is like a thought process and methodology. And it's like when you say, do you speak like Mexican? It's like, it's not Mexican, it's Spanish, right? Spanish is like the word. So like DevOps would be the word, right? But site reliability engineer would be like the subtext of what DevOps is, right? So site reliability engineer addresses more of like the system engineer role of like the core infrastructure, like dealing with CI/CD, dealing with like on-prem servers and things like that, right? While DevOps is a thought process about failing fast, where you can catch your errors quickly and be able to break that wall of confusion and siloing between the systems engineers versus the network engineers versus the deployment engineers. So DevOps is actually a thought process of bringing all those types of engineers together to break that wall of confusion. So DevOps engineer is technically a role people can apply for, right? But in reality, it's a thought process of breaking that wall down in order to include those all in one in order to work together. And site reliability, like I said, it just focuses more on systems, while DevOps focuses on like the whole thing, right? Networking, CI/CD, deployment, as well as like scripting in order for you to create environments automatically. The key thing about DevOps is you want to fail fast and automate and have infrastructure as code. Systems engineers do the same thing, but they focus more on the hardware and the infrastructure of deploying things versus looking at just that part. They're not looking at networking per se. They have another person that may do it. And with like cloud engineering, that's literally taking the DevOps methodologies and systems engineering, but putting it in like AWS or Azure and GCP. And that networking and that systems engineering is completely different because it's not on premise. There's no like pizza box that you have to put memory in, and you just have to allocate memory. But now you have to know the differences between the boxes that GCP offers versus AWS. And you have to create this whole infrastructure that you used to create with like 7 engineers in like a tech firm or a trading firm. You are now that sole person that has to do all those roles in the cloud. So that's like there's huge differences in all of them.
Gotcha. So is the cloud kind of replacing all these like physical data servers that exist all over the world?
Yeah, they are. They are. The only reason why you would have on-prem servers is like government. Some people may say security, and also for trading, you need on-premise servers closest to the co-location that the exchange is at. So, like if you're trading on CME, and their co-locations like on Cermak, you want to have your physical machines next to them for there's like little connection where you can trade fast, right? That's common knowledge. That's not like a trade secret. You want to be closest to where everything's at for you can make more money. So
yeah, this has been so educational for me. I had no idea. So moving along, like what has been one of like your go-to resources, whether that's like a book or a blog or a podcast or something that has nothing to do with tech, whatever you want, that has influenced you in like your career?
Like that's not tech. I honestly think it's more like ever since I was in tech and I was feeling kind of lonely, I didn't realize that there was groups. Like the first group I found was like Latinas in tech at like Grace Hopper, and like I think I started crying when I met these women because like they were just so amazing to me. Like they worked at NASA and Intel and like had PhDs and like they're Latinas, and I gravitated to that. And sometimes when I feel like I'm the dumbest person on earth or like I am not getting what I need to get, I look at their profiles and see like what they accomplished. And I'm like, oh my God, they did this like with like paper code. Like I can do this, right? So I go to the Latinas in Computing website and look at resources they may have, or like read some of the Twitter handles that are out there. I look at them and see like the amazing things they're doing. Or more recently, I've been looking at like Techeria or Latinas in Tech and Women Who Code, and like joining those Slack channels because before, you know, you pick up a group of friends every now and then when you go work, right? And that's your source of comfort. But now I'm finding groups now outside of that, to do that. So like I look at like Techeria and I look at blog posts from people that are in those groups and just look at like amazing things. Tecnolo Chicas is another one. I'm part of their group and they send out stuff about amazing things that Latinas are doing at NASA right now or SpaceX. And those are my sources of inspiration, especially Tecnolo Chicas. They have a lot of blog posts that really inspire me to like keep going when the road is rough.
Yeah, I'm an ambassador for them.
Oh, that's awesome.
I haven't like it's funny because I'm like they also welcome people that are not non-technical to like help kind of spread the word about them. So I actually became an ambassador a couple of years ago for them and follow them usually.
Yeah, I'm an ambassador for them too. But it took like barely 3 years ago, I think or 2 years ago I joined. Like I just feel like I'm delayed in a lot of these things, or because I started maybe earlier or what have you. But now that the last 5 years, I've been just finding these groups and these blog posts and like following the people that I meet in these places to like keep me going and like just read their blogs. It's really inspiring.
Yeah. That's awesome. And you should actually look more into like speaking engagements too. Like I know that coming up, Latinx Fest is coming up that the Queria and Latinas in Tech plan and help together too with like a Core Center and other organizations. And then Techies is also hosting their own summit for Hispanic Heritage Month. And I saw that they're looking for speakers. So you should definitely check those out too. Yeah, so I love that. I love all those organizations. I am a part of Latinas in Tech, as you know, leading the center here in Chicago. And also like helping get the Techeria off the ground here in Chicago. So that's been really fun, like partnering with them and working with those teams. So it's definitely something that I'm very passionate about, those community groups. I'm happy that you're part of it and that, we're trying to get more women that look like us in the tech space.
Like I've been working in industry for like 11 or 12 years and I have that group of solid friends that like have helped me through and through. Like literally the reason why I'm still and where I'm at is because of that group of friends that I met and coworkers along the way. But being in like a Latinx or Latin scene is completely different in tech because the problems we see are completely different because of how we grew up or where we come from. And those are different problems we're trying to solve, and we all come from different backgrounds.
So with that, I am really curious to learn about your goals for the future and what's next for Carmen.
Finishing that PhD though. That's my goal. That's my main personal goal, is to finish my PhD and to publish and make everyone proud, but also make myself proud, because it's always been my goal to get it. But I found a passion, and tech in industry. My other goal is just to become like a senior architect, like a senior infrastructure architect or cloud architect, depending on what new endeavors and projects I'm working on at my current company. That's the thing I love about my current company right now. I can basically, get impassioned on something, and if it fits with the what we're working on, I can use it. I can test. I have the ability to move up. Like I said, my current manager is a female. My current DevOps engineer is also female, and I've never had that before. So it's an amazing experience, and I think that goes with the times, like, and also like finance industry is changing, and people are making those changes now. So the world that felt lonely before is actually not, as a female Latina, is not so lonely anymore.
Yeah.
So my goal in industry is to become a senior architect, an architect in general, and leave the senior DevOps engineer and become an architect and finish that PhD. So hopefully Dr. Carmen Saenz will be up in 3 years.
There you go. I mean, it's in the universe. It's gonna happen. That's amazing. Those are great goals to have. So now I want to give people the opportunity to connect with you. So I'm curious, how can people connect with you?
Usually through my LinkedIn. You can look up, linkedin.com/in/MDC Saenz, or MDC Saenz on Twitter. That's my Twitter handle. So you can contact me that way.
Cool. And I'll put all those links in the show notes too, so that people can easily access those.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Carmen, for joining me today. It was really nice chatting with you. Definitely feeling really empowered, and I'm excited for you. I'm excited for your doctor status coming soon. So good luck with everything, and thank you again.
No, thank you, Ceci, for the opportunity to come talk to you, and let's keep doing great things.
For sure. Let's do it. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Chicago Techies podcast. If you enjoyed listening, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review on iTunes. Let's continue the conversation on Twitter and Instagram. Follow us at Chicago Techies on all social media channels. Thank you again, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.